Fighting isn't really Maribelle's thing, she's more into tea. But she will rip you to pieces if you threaten any of her friends. Just as long as she doesn't get hit first. Looking at Maribelle's growths, you'll notice something that definitely sticks out. Yeah, there are no two ways about this. Maribelle is fragile. Very, very fragile. I don't think I've seen a character in the entire Fire Emblem series who's nearly as fragile as her, except maybe Sophia. But, yeah, Maribelle has the worst HP growth in the game. It's so bad that I actually based the HP scale off of her. I subtracted 20 from every HP to make it so that 10 would... Basically, 30, which is her base growth in HP, would map to 10, as in the lowest possible value that I could see here. So basically, yeah, her HP is very, 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 very bad. And so is her defense. Her defense is incredibly pathetic as well. So that's the main thing to keep in mind with Maribelle. She is quite possibly one of the most fragile characters in the game, if not Fire Emblem history. If she gets hit, she is pretty much gonna be on death's door. She'll pretty much die to even a slight breeze. That's how frail she is. So with that, that's a pretty serious flaw. She must have some way to make up for that, right? Well, she actually does. Maribelle has very, very high magic for a healing class. Her magic growth is equal to Muriel, who's probably one of the better offensive mages in this game, so that's very impressive, and her skill and speed are decent as well. As is her resistance, but that's pretty much expected of a healer. The thing that really should stick out to you though is that utterly massive luck growth. For some reason her base stat in that area isn't all that high. I mean, Ricken started with more luck than she did, but oh boy, she'll definitely make up for that when she levels up. That luck growth, it's equal to Donnie's when he isn't boosted by aptitude, and considering that he has one of the best luck stats in the game, that's really saying something. So that's definitely a major advantage Maribelle has going for her. She will probably have very high evasion eventually, which is a damn good thing because she needs it with that massively terrible HP and defense. So overall, as far as Maribelle's stats go, she leans more towards being offensive as far as healers go. Of course, she can't actually attack offensively until promotion, but when she does, she'll actually be very, very good at it. On that note, let's check out her class options. Maribelle's main class option is Troubadour, which is a mounted healer basically, so that's a major advantage she has going for her. She can get her healing to where it is most needed very quickly. But the price to pay is that she's actually very, very fragile, at least a bit more so than Lissa. While Lissa can take a hit or two, Maribelle really can't, but Maribelle can avoid enemies more easily, so it sort of balances out. In this class, she'll gain the Demoiselle, I can't pronounce that right because I think it's probably French, and I am terrible at French, but I'll just call it Secluded Lady again, which gives a boost to all male allies within a 3-tile radius. Now, the funny thing about this skill is that, slight spoilers, Maribelle's child is male. Maribelle's child is possibly the most likely male character to inherit Demoiselle. And the funny thing about that is, well, it'll make sense when you see him, trust me. Yeah, you'll see. That's all I'll say for now, but that's pretty funny. Upgraded, she gains access to either the Valkyrie or the War Cleric class. Now, I would definitely recommend Valkyrie. That makes the best use of Maribelle's very good magic growth, and she'll actually become a pretty decent offensive powerhouse in that class. She's actually probably one of the better mounted magical attackers in the game, but again, remember that she's very, very fragile, so she may not exactly be that good on the front lines, more as to pick off certain enemies where it's safe, really, because she'll still have massively low defense and HP, so she'll be very, very, very weak against physical attacks. But as a Valkyrie, she'll gain access to the Rally Resistance skill. Now, Maribelle learns a lot of decent rally skills, and as far as support for magic users via rallying, she is one of the best at this. Having access to Rally Resistance, Rally Luck, Rally Magic, Rally Speed, and Rally Movement, pretty much every stat that a mage needs. So if you're using a mage-heavy army, Maribelle's rally skills can be really important, and they definitely gel with her role as a healer too, so if you don't want as many offensive skills on her, giving her a rally skill set might not be a bad idea, because she is more of a support character in, well, in some classes. She is a very good magical attacker as well, so whatever suits you really. Also dual support plus, definitely, probably, again, I'll say it, the best female exclusive skill aside from Gale Force. However, the problem is, Maribelle actually does have access to Gale Force, so as far as inheritance goes, it's probably best to pass that one down. Dual support plus is still amazing though. Maribelle is not exactly all that great as a war cleric though. She actually has less strength in that class than Lissa, so not really the best. And while Rally Luck is decent, Renewal is not a very good skill on her, for this reason. It restores a small amount of HP every turn. In order for it to even kick in, Maribelle will have to have lost at least some HP. Here's the problem. There's very little distinction between Maribelle losing some of her HP and losing all of her HP. If Maribelle's been damaged, she's probably very nearly dead, and thus will not get much use out of this skill at all. Maribelle is absolutely terrible defensively, so a healing over time skill is pretty bad on her, so I wouldn't recommend that. Maribelle's other class option is Mage, which is kind of interesting, and it does differentiate her from Lissa, who doesn't really have much in the way of offensive class options. As a Mage, Maribelle will basically be a version of Muriel with slightly less speed, but a lot more luck, and even more fragile. So, still pretty decent overall. Those skills might not be as much use on her though, especially Focus, since, well, Maribelle definitely does like being near allies so she can be protected because of her insane frailty. But she's actually very good at this class, and as a Sage, she's actually not really all that bad. Pretty much in terms of stats, she'll be the same as she would be as a Mage, but she'll gain Rally Magic, which I've discussed already, and Tome Fair, which again is quite useful for her because she's pretty good at magical offense. Now, interestingly, Maribelle is actually kind of alright as a Dark Knight, really. She'll have the same strength growth as Rickhead, which means that she'll actually be able to use physical weapons kind of well, at least as far as primary magic users go. And overall, it's not exactly that bad of an option. I mean, Life Taker's alright, but again, the fact that it requires her to be damaged. Yeah, if Maribelle gets damaged, she is most likely going to be dead before she even has a chance to heal it off, so not all that useful for her. The main problem with her in this class, though, is she still has very bad defense and HP, and so Rickhan's a little better in that department. As far as mounted magical offense goes, it's much better to have her as a Valkyrie. That way she'll still be able to heal, and she'll be able to hit hard with magic as well. Now, her other class tree is Pegasus Knight, and this is mainly useful once again for Gale Force, which, if you're min-maxing, you want her to learn this so that her son can inherit it, because definitely the best skill for him to inherit. But overall, Pegasus Knight is an alright option on her. I mean, Lissa already had this option, and I kind of discussed the benefits of it back there. She won't exactly hit all that hard, but as a Dark Flyer, she'll actually do decent damage with magic, so she's one of the few who'll actually be able to do that. But her strength won't be all that great as a Dark Flyer, with only a 30% strength growth, so might not exactly be the best option. I still prefer Valkyrie for her because it lets her heal, and really healing is one of her main strengths. But definitely useful for Gale Force, and also useful for Rally Movement, as well as Rally Speed from Falconite. Now, she'll be able to heal as a Falconite as well, but again, if I want a hybrid healing offensive class on Maribelle, I'd rather go Valkyrie. So overall, Maribelle's class options are actually very good, and she makes a surprisingly good offensive magic user when promoted, so definitely very good if you just cover her weaknesses. Mainly, don't let her get hit by physical weapons at all. She really doesn't appreciate that. Yeah, she'll be kind of very dead very fast if she gets attacked by physical users, so watch out for that. Maribelle's voice actress is Melissa Farn, who hasn't really done all that much as far as game roles go. Really, the only notable game role of hers I could find was as Okuni in Samurai Warriors. Other than that, though, she did play Ed in Cowboy Bebop, so That's actually quite a famous anime dub. It's one of the few anime dubs that was actually endorsed by the creator of the Japanese version, who actually says it's better than his version, so that's definitely some pretty high praise. And you've probably seen by now, this video goes on for a bit longer. Yes, it's that time again. Maribelle is indeed one of Chrom's marriage options, and as an option, she's very weird and needs a lot of discussing. Basically, this pairing is one of the least popular of Chrom's by far, and it's not all that hard to see why. The Chrom-Maribelle pairing has a lot of major flaws. As you can see there, 3 of the stat caps it passes down are the worst out of all his pairings. Firstly, it passes down the worst strength modifier out of any of Chrom's pairings. This is very bad, since Chrom's children are generally suited for physically based classes. It also passes down the worst speed modifier, but it's still +2. It mainly shows just how good the other speed cap modifiers from his other pairings are, as opposed to how bad this one is, so not really too much to fault there. The real issue though is, remember how I said before that Sumiya may pass down a -2 defense modifier, but that's not the worst out of Chrom's brides? That's because of Maribelle. Yeah, someone as fragile as Maribelle will not exactly pass down that good as far as a defense cap goes, and yes, this gives Chrom's children the worst possible defense they will have in any of their pairings. Not only that, but it also, unlike Sumiya, doesn't pass down very many defensive skills to make up for this. So, Chrom's children are going to be very bad defensively with this pairing, and very bad physically offensively too. Because of this, you're probably wondering what the heck is even the point of making this pairing? It just seems pretty terrible, doesn't it? Actually, no, but you have to think outside the box to make this one useful. The modifiers this passes down that are positive, though, is especially that +3 to the magic cap. +3 luck and +2 resistance are decent, and +3 skill is alright, and +2 speed certainly isn't bad. But it's the +3 magic that really shines here. If you want Chrom's main child to be a magic user, this is the pairing you want to make. Now, at first you're probably thinking, why the heck would I do that? Chrom's main child is primarily a physical user. But if you reclass them to a mage with this pairing, they'll actually be very, very good as a magic user. In fact, used right, they can be extremely devastating. A lunatic mode, no grinding run of Apotheosis. Yes, that's right, the final ultimate DLC chapter with no grinding has been completed using this pairing. And it was actually a pretty big factor in making that run work, because making Chrom's child a really good magic user helps with the vast variety of incredibly useful magic tomes, mainly Celica's Gale, essentially the magic equivalent of a brave weapon, which gives you double the number of attacks for your round, so you attack twice per attack, so that can get pretty insane, and that was a key thing in helping them beat Apotheosis with no grinding. So thinking about it that way, a pairing that lets you do Apotheosis without grinding is certainly not bad, you just really need to know how to use it right, so this pairing certainly falls under what I call difficult but awesome. It looks really bad at first glance, and it does have a lot of glaring flaws, but if you get past those and look at the one major strength, you'll find that one strength is actually very, very, very big. As far as classes passed down, Chrom's child is the main one who benefits here, getting access to Valkyrie, Mage, a whole lot of really good magic-using classes, as well as Dark Knight, where they'd still be able to use the Falchion. Also, very importantly, Pegasus Knight for access to Gale Force. Yeah, pretty much all of Chrom's potential brides other than Sully pass down Gale Force, so that is kind of a point that's not really in Chrom/Sully's favour. It'll pretty much provide access to every skill that Maribelle had, and I already talked about how good those can be, so it provides a decent set of skills for what it does. Unfortunately, Maribelle's child kinda gets the short end of the stick with this pairing. Because Maribelle already basically passes down Cavalier to her child, essentially, since Maribelle has 2 female-exclusive classes, they get swapped for male-exclusive ones. Her child gets the Troubadour line swapped out for Priest, and the Pegasus Knight line swapped out for Cavalier, so Chrom's Cavalier inheritance is redundant, and thus Chrom only passes down Archer. Not exactly the best line to really be passing down to someone like Maribelle's child, which we'll see why later. He'll also inherit the Rightful King skill, which... Maribelle's child definitely makes the worst use of Rightful King out of any of Chrom's potential children. Luna and Aegis are literally the only two skills that he can actually use with it. And considering that a lot of Chrom's other options when it comes to Rightful King, it's not exactly all that impressive. Basically, Maribelle's child won't really all be that great with this pairing, and so it basically sacrifices him for Chrom's main child, who will be a very, very good mage. Kind of reminds me a bit of the Edain and Azel pairing in Fire Emblem 4. It makes one of the children ridiculously good, but it heavily sacrifices the other one for that. But a lot of Fire Emblem fans do think that one ridiculously overpowered unit is better than two slightly overpowered units, so this could actually not be an issue to you. Again, this pairing largely depends on your playstyle. If you don't intend to make Chrom's main child a magic user, this is definitely not a good pairing to consider. Really, this pairing is a one-trick pony, but that one trick is very, very good if you know how to use it right. If not, the major amount of flaws this pairing has is probably not enough to make it worth it. But, like I said, if you can use this right, it can be very, very dangerous.